Welcome, everyone, to the Beauty and the Surgeon podcast. I'm Amy. I'm a nutritional therapy counselor. And I'm joined today with not only Dr. Jason Martin, he's a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon.
That's me, Amy. That's me.
You?
Yep.
That's this guy right here. We also have today with us friend of the show, Steve Shaw. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you probably remember that we spoke with him about 2 years ago now.
It was such an inspirational talk with his whole backstory.
Yeah, it was so good. I mean, if you have not listened to that podcast, I highly recommend it. We don't talk specifically about plastic surgery during it, so it's more of a wellness podcast, but he lost over 150, 130 pounds.
I think it was 150.
It's incredibly inspirational. His story is pretty amazing, and he just has a very interesting life.
Yeah.
So that's why we're having him on again. He's going to talk to us about what he's up to now.
So this episode's named Steve Shaw Returns.
Steve Shaw Returns.
Like Batman Returns.
He
kind of is one of those characters. He's like Batman or...
Kind of is like Batman.
He is. Yeah. He has that quality to him. So
he's with us in audio spirit only. He's not with us in video, but if you do want to watch the video of just Dr. Martin and I staring at my phone for a half hour,
we're on YouTube.
You can find that on YouTube at Beauty and the Surgeon
and
podcast.
Amy and I take a selfie in the middle of it. So we'll see.
And at Jason Martin MD on YouTube. So thanks for joining us. And I think you guys are really going to love this interview with friend of the podcast, Steve Shaw. Here we go. So welcome, Steve. Steve Shaw was on our podcast, probably a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
It's been a while. And at the time, I had reached out to Steve because I found him so amazingly inspirational. He has an amazing story. You guys should definitely go back and listen to that podcast, where we won't go over everything that we talked about in that one just because it's been done. So Steve has done some pretty awesome things in the last couple of years, including getting married. And he has started running, which is super cool. So we're going to talk to him a lot about what's been going on in his life. And we're so happy to have him back. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, thank you. I didn't realize it's been that long. It's been like 20 months. It seems just like a couple months ago.
Yeah, it really does. It seems like it was just yesterday. It's crazy.
And we taught you about living in Lebanon, Lebanon, Indiana, not
Ohio.
Lebanon, Ohio.
Yeah, because remember, I'm corn-fused. Nothing else
That's
happens
right.
in
That's
Ohio.
Right. Yeah. So it's good to have you, Steve. It's amazing what you've done in those 20 months, though. That's what's been truly remarkable. You just keep on pushing and keep on changing, and that's inspirational from our end.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I just continue to wake up each day and say, what foolish thing can I do today? And then I just follow through.
Well, that's true. I always joke that I'm like a Clydesdale, not a gazelle, because I'm, not a petite person. But I used to really enjoy running, but to take up running is a pretty significant task, especially at the distances that you and Fiona are doing. So what did start that bug for you guys to put on the shoes and run?
Well, last July, just a little to set the table a little bit. About a month before last July, so that would be, maybe early June of 2018. I ran 2 miles without stopping, and I was very excited.
Yeah, and I think I want to interrupt you here because I think everyone needs to go look at Instagram at Ben the Barman and then go back historically in some of your pictures of what you look like before. The fact that you can run at your size because you're a big dude. Go ahead.
That's a story in and of itself. I didn't expect to get this far, but we can get into that. But I was very excited at that time, and I looked over at I was browsing through the internet, and I stumbled across something really silly, a marathon on a trail, a hiking trail, a really challenging trail. And I asked my wife if she wanted to do it, and she always says yes because she's insanely fit and always up for a challenge. And a month after running my first 2 miles, we went to Cacapon State Park in West Virginia, and I ran a trail marathon, which was extremely life-changing. Try not to get emotional thinking about it now, but I still do, because you get to mile 15 and you're like, this is the silliest thing I've ever done, because it's so incredibly challenging. The vertical changes, the changes in elevation, and you get to mile 20 and you're starting to cry because you can't believe you're going to do it. But that moment, really opened my mind to the possibility that I can do things that I didn't think I could do. So we kind of set running aside a little bit last winter because obviously we thought it was too cold to run. and picked it up again this year. And I looked over at my wife and I said, I want to do something, I want to do something, really crazy. I want to, do a full year of running and see if I can do 2,500 kilometers. And it's just an arbitrary goal that I pulled out of my back end, to phrase it politely. But then we just decided to do it for a charity, and that's when the story began.
And is that, Steve, the name of your movie, the 96 Hours film? Is that the kind of the part of that 2,500 kilometers?
Yeah, I mean, we decided to document it because we really didn't know what to expect, and we ran into a really good filmmaker locally, Mark Pateri, who is like a brother now. He trails us everywhere. But we're working on a documentary called 96 Hours, and it's just following our journey as two, novice runners attempt to go from 0 to a 100-mile run in a year's time.
Yeah, that's crazy. I have a good friend of mine. She was an Olympic swimmer, and she married a guy who was an ultra marathoner, and then she liked to run as well. And I asked him once, my friend Lee, I'm like, what do you think about for 50 miles? Because he was doing a 50-mile run, a trail run around like Lake Tahoe, I think it went around Lake Tahoe. And his answer was he just hoped that he could get behind a girl with a nice butt and follow her. But I really do. I mean, I guess.
No, it takes such mental fortitude to be able to do that.
It really does. Like, to kind of be your own pep talk during that time. Like, what do you find kind of gets you through those times where you're running like by yourself?
Especially since you have to put it in perspective. Steve, I don't want to give away your age, but I will. You're 52 years old. You struggled for 52, right? That's correct. Yeah, you struggled for, a decent part of your life with obesity, and I mean, it's really unhealthy. And and with your body type, the fact that you could even run a marathon, much less more than a marathon, is extremely remarkable. That's a huge mental feat more than a physical feat for someone with your body type. So, I mean, yeah, what do you think about? Because the whole time I would be thinking about is, why am I doing this?
Where's my bike?
I'm always last in every race, which speaks for itself. It's funny because I'm always the slowest, but I can just keep going. But what do you think about? Well, there's a trailer we have on our website, 96 Hours Film, 96hoursfilm.com, where I'm in the middle of just a brutal run, and I'm just babbling to myself. And I said, you'd like to reassure yourself that you're almost there, but really the only way to reassure yourself is to continue to tell yourself that I'm not almost there, I'm not almost there, I'm not almost done, just to get that out of your head. And it's really strange. You have to become comfortable with knowing you're not even close to being done. And then what do I think about? I just continue to keep my mind empty and enjoy the scenery. And a lot of times, really, what you're thinking about is how to manage all the chaos that's around you, blisters and oncoming cramps and vomit. I mean, you're not vomiting. Your stomach gets so unsettled when you're running that distance, because all the blood is in your skin, and it's not in your stomach. So whatever you drink and eat just kind of settles in your stomach, and you're managing all this chaos while just trying to move forward and pace yourself and get there. So that's a lot of it. Like, how am I going to survive?
Yeah, I think that's an extra challenge too with a trail run. I mean, running on a paved or a kind of a dirt path is a whole lot different than doing like an up and down through the woods, obstacles. Like, trail running is a whole other beast.
There's a race here in Colorado called the Leadville 100, which is a foot race, and it is brutal. It goes up some ungodly.
Well, it starts at 10,000 feet.
Yeah. And
that's the low point.
I've talked to a few people who've done that race, big time runners. I guess Lance Armstrong's done it once, and
as a mountain biker.
Yeah. Or the mountain bike. Didn't he run it too?
Mountain biked it.
Oh, mountain bike. Okay. Anyways, it's the terrain that really gets them, not just the altitude.
Yeah, well, it's so unpredictable too. I mean, even on a summer day, if you're deep in the woods, it can be pretty chilly. And if it starts to rain, it's going to be really muddy.
No, just the uneven ground. That's what they
Yeah.
said. It messes up with your cadence
Yep.
in your brain. So you're always adjusting. You're always adjusting.
That's kind of the thing. I mean, most people, when they look at my social media, they just think it's some fat man out for a jog on some paved surface. But
Right.
it's not. You have to have your eyes on the ground at all times. If not, you're headed down to the ground. You know, we are dealing with roots and rocks, and you have to assume every rock's going to move. Every small stone is going to push you. You have to deal with mud. Now we're running in snow, and leaves and ice. So you do not get a break whether you're running for 6 hours or 12 hours. You have to watch everything, and I can't tell you how many times we fall.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. How do you go about fueling for one of these extreme endurance races?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
How do you fuel? Like preparing like the day before, or like in the weeks up, like coming up to the race, and then even during the race, like just to make sure you're hydrated and fed and have energy.
Because it seems like you would have to eat and drink the whole time.
Yeah, but then you can't because your stomach can't take
I know.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and something we're learning. I mean, sometimes, I've overcome type 2 diabetes, or I'm managing type 2 diabetes. So generally, I don't eat junk, but a lot of times before a race, I'll have a Krispy Kreme donut, which is like rocket fuel for me. I've tried we did a race, our second race in Cacapon State Park, the year we came back to try the marathon. We had eggs and sausage for breakfast, and my wife proceeded to vomit 20 times.
Oh my gosh.
20K.
Oh.
So it's a really, really fine line. The one thing you have to do, or we have to do, and I'm not speaking for everybody, is learn to stop and get your body temperature cool every couple hours for about 10 minutes. So some of the blood will return to your stomach and digest. Because you can have too many electrolytes, and that'll mess up your blood concentration. You can drink and drink and drink, but if it's not getting if it's not digesting properly, you're going to get sick. So
yeah,
it's just a little bit. It's like eating as little as possible to keep you going, plus balancing that with taking rest so you can just temporarily cool your body temperature down.
I mean, the storage you have in calories in that situation is finite, so you're going to burn through those at a certain,
well,
certain
in glycogen, yes.
I mean, glycogen. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, you'd have to go to the other stores, but that's what you need when you're running these races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, though, like how your body functions during an endurance race.
Yeah, I mean, I believe I burned 7,700 calories in a trail marathon, and I probably eat 2,500.
Right.
That would consist of protein bars, combos. I don't know what it is about running, but I hate combos except when I'm running and they taste like the food of the gods.
I
What's
love
that salt?
Dude,
Yeah.
I love combos when I was growing up. The pizza ones.
It's salty and
Oh my god.
refined
Maybe
carbs.
that's a Midwest thing,
Yeah.
Steve. I don't think she knows what we're talking
No,
about.
I know what they
Oh,
are.
okay.
Yeah, I know exactly. They look like little hot dogs. They're like a little hot
Oh,
dog
I love
cracker.
them.
Yeah. And I found that when I did 100-mile century bike rides, quite a few of them, and it was always interesting to me what was palatable on any given race.
Yeah.
Because you get up to the aid station and they've got bananas and Oreos
And the
and peanut
goo.
butter and jelly and gels and Gatorade and all this stuff, and then of course there's the stuff you bring, and
Right.
I think there are those foods that like every once in a while you hit on something that you're like, this is the best food I've ever had in my entire life. Like this saved my life today. Like I'll never forget it.
I think anyone who's run long distances, you realize you're going to deal with nausea at some point, and then feeling like you have to poop your pants.
I was going to say like extreme stomach duress, intestinal distress.
There's nothing worse.
Yeah.
I guess if you're in the middle of a forest, Steve, you can go poop in the forest. But like when you're running a marathon in the middle of a city street and everyone's cheering you on, and you feel like you have to, have some serious diarrhea.
That's one of the benefits of being always last in a race.
No.
Sorry for all the listeners, but it is a 12-hour day. So.
Yeah, it's all part of it.
Yeah.
It is inspiring though that you're doing this, and I think we should probably go into one of your motivations for doing all this stuff. But I think it is analogous to life. You're running, running, running. You don't see the end, but you have to stop your brain from looking to forward and just deal with what you have to deal with now, which is how you feel, what your calories are, all that kind of stuff.
Well, and enjoying the process.
And enjoying the process, like you said,
no
like
use
looking
hating
around
it.
and seeing nature and stuff. So it's pretty awesome. One of the things that you had at least promoted on social media was Aiden. Can you tell us a little bit more about him and your association with him?
Sure. I mean, I will preface this by saying I'm a firm believer in leaving yourself no way out. You can come up with the best idea in the world, but if you leave yourself with a way to escape, then you're less likely to reach that goal. So people ask me, what do I get from running? And I'll go into Aiden in just a second, but people ask me, what do I get from running for Aiden? What do I get for running for a paralyzed child? I get no way out. I get no way out. I committed to a year to run for this child, and if I quit, I'm a loser. So one of the benefits I get for running for Aiden is that I've left myself no way out. So when we came up with the idea to run for a charity, I approached the mayor of the city of Lebanon, Ohio, and they call it Lebanon, but I'm defiant and naturally a rebel, so I pronounce it properly. But I approached the mayor, and they said they had a local child by the name of Aiden. He was basically a miracle survivor of a car crash. The medical community had never seen anything like him. His spine was severed, and he spent, I believe, 60 or 80 days in the hospital and endless surgeries just trying to piece him back together so he could live. And we met Aiden, and he was 6 years old at the time, just a brilliant kid, smart, great attitude, just somebody you just immediately, adored. And it was a good fit. So we met with his grandma and said, we're going to run for a year for Aiden to raise money. And, in that time, we're in about day 196. Aiden's become like a little brother to us. We had him last weekend for the whole day. We took him rock climbing.
Oh, fun.
Which he just kept asking for more and more. So that's we have a website, Run for Aiden, number 4, AIDAN. We're raising money for him, slowly but surely. But it's just a mutually beneficial situation. We get to help somebody that has nobody supporting him, and we get to leave ourselves no way out. So it's just a good situation.
Oh, that's awesome. That's true. I mean, it's like one of those social experiments where you'll accept more pain to save somebody else from having pain. So it's that same thing, like kind of taking the pain or taking the burden. I'm sure it doesn't feel like it when you guys are out there running. It's a good motivation to know that you're helping someone else's life be better.
There's that famous experiment. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's like 66% of the people gave the pain to somebody else and 33% took the pain.
Oh, I'd take the pain.
Yeah,
if it was someone I liked.
Yeah, and there was supposedly a guy behind the wall, and they would press a button and he would get shocked. And the only option you had was either to shock that guy or do you get shocked.
Oh, no, if I could see the person, I would take the shock.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't know them.
No, they couldn't see the person.
But if I knew they were there.
Yeah. So 66% of society would not do what Steve's doing, basically.
Yeah.
Well,
do that much
I will
for
tell
someone.
you, if it wasn't for Aiden, there'd be many days that we wouldn't have ran. I'd like to pretend I'm a superhero, and that wouldn't be the case, but it just shows you the value of leaving no way out of a situation. The old adage that if you're going to go to war, head to the island and burn your boat so you have no way out.
Right. That's true.
If you can, you'll fight harder.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find a way to do that in life, in a situation, it'll really change the whole dynamic of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's true.
There was a point in surgical training when I had that feeling. I was like, I'm so far down this road.
I
can't go back.
Nope.
Yeah.
You've gone too far.
I actually totally ascribe to that. I think that maybe is, some people don't, but I absolutely agree with that. I think you have to go head first into things and not allow yourself to go out. If you truly want to conquer this demon, this challenge, to better yourself, I think you have to go, head first.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't do that. Sometimes they may think that's reckless, but I think that's the way the human brain works. If you give yourself an out, a lot of times you will not get through.
Yep.
And that's the problem with dieting, with smoking cessation, and everything that, with things you try to improve yourself, even mental improvement.
Mhm.
I think if you give yourself an out, a lot of times you're not successful with that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you tend to focus on the out
Hmm.
a little bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Steve, what would you say are like your top like must-haves for running?
It's definitely not eggs and bacon before
Not
the
eggs.
race.
No, not eggs before a race. Like Body Glide.
Band-aids on your nipples.
It's definitely my nipple glide, my body glide, especially during winter, because when you get wet and things are cold, that's a really bad combination. Chafing is awful. Not to be crude, but it's always the sensitive areas that get hit the hardest,
Hmm.
and you really have to be very, very protective of that. So that's one. My Solomon shoes, my Speed Cross 4s. I don't know what I'd do without those. I'm on like pair 7, and shoes are so very important. Finding something that works for you. I'm such a big guy that I go through them very quickly. I tear them up, but that's a necessity. I've tried other shoes and they tore my hip up in like 2 weeks. So it's you find something you like. And my third necessity is my wife, because no matter where I am, near death, near quitting, she's just bouncing along like she's just ran 100 yards, with energy. I could simply not do it without her. She has a mental strength that is beyond anything I've seen in any human being, and the ability to be so incredibly positive in the midst of the most hellish situation. I can't even begin to tell you. And just to tell a little side story on that, when we were at West Virginia this year, she wanted 50K. She had never run 50 kilometers before, and it's brutally hot. It's exceptionally humid, and this trail is like a roller coaster. And after 20 miles, I caught up to her on the trail, and she was vomiting. She had vomited like 20 times, and I had to help her back to the aid station. And we thought we were going to have to take her to the hospital. After a few pieces of pizza, a little bit of water, and an hour rest, she went back out and ran 20 kilometers.
Oh my goodness.
That's crazy.
That is. I mean, there really is no substitute for like a training partner in life, in anything that's going to push you to be your best.
Plus one who's Australian, because Australians seem to like always have the best attitude about everything.
Yeah, maybe
They're
that's
always
part
like
of it.
funny, joking.
Well, Steve just went to Australia. What did you think that was some part of the culture there?
It's culturally, they're awesome.
Yeah. Australians, they're a cut above. They live with the extreme heat and the extreme predators, and they like sports where people don't wear padding.
Yeah, totally.
That's true.
That's super inspiring, Steve. So, I mean, the ultimate goal is 100 miles, one run, right? That's where you're heading?
That's correct.
So have you planned that out, where that's going to be?
Yeah, we have a race, and I believe it's May 24th. We have a 96-hour period of time to do it. Hence the name of the film is 96 Hours. It's in Tennessee. It's called the Ozone Ultra, and that it will be in May of 2020. My birthday this year, on October 13th, which was a little over a month ago, we did a test of 52 hours for my 52nd birthday, just to see what we could learn. And we learned a lot. I did my first 100 kilometers. I got to tell you, after 32, I was about ready to tap out. And I learned such an incredible amount from that run. So yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to attempt the 100 miler. I'm pretty confident I can get it after hitting 100K. It's just a matter of will my body hold up.
Yeah.
And do you sleep in short intervals during that time, or do you try to walk, run the whole time with some rest?
Um, you know, if you're one of the insane ultra runners, they rest. They tend to rest. I mean, if you look at like the documentaries of the 100 milers, they stop at the aid stations 10, 15, some of them a half an hour. Some of them get so delirious, depending on how difficult the course is, they need to rest a little bit because hallucination happens out there. I
Mm.
mean, it happens for me usually after 8 to 10 miles. But we rest. We try to get a trailer and pull it at an RV at the park where we were running, but we couldn't, so we actually had to run near our home and rest. But it was basically come home, change your underwear, go to the bathroom, eat, rest for an hour, just get off your feet for an hour, and then go back and do it again. That was our cycle for 52 straight hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
There was a documentary I watched. I forget the name. I'm sure you know it, Steve. It was about these ultra runners that run the Appalachian Trail,
Mm.
and
Right.
it was off the chains. This guy would sleep maybe 2 hours and just keep on running, and he did this for days. Days.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's you feel like you're in this alternative reality where you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. After 32 kilometers, I couldn't. The alarm went off after like 45 minutes of sleep, and I couldn't literally get out of bed and walk to turn the alarm off. I was so stiff and so exhausted. And then I think I went out and ran 20K. And you get in this cycle where you get up and you're like, I think I'm dead. And and then you go out and run 15K. And then you do it again. And then you I think I'm dead. And then you realize at the end of it, like, how you feel is a lie. The body is capable of doing so much more than you can imagine, that even if I can't walk to the alarm clock, I can't focus, I'm hallucinating, that I could still go out and run 20 kilometers. It's just absolutely insane.
Really is a testament to the fact that the mind really is stronger than the body in some senses. Like if you can convince your brain to do something, your body will kind of follow.
If you look at these ultra runners, I mean, they have certain physical components that make them really good at it, but most of them will tell you it's just really mind over matter.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
it has to
they're
be.
extremely they're different. They're made up. Their mind is made differently that they can withstand extreme amounts of discomfort and pain, and like you're saying, Steve, delirium almost. I mean, there was times when you're watching that documentary that he's delirious and he's still running. Most people would like just fall down, and he just keeps on running.
Our second night run, our second night of running during the 52 hours, my wife was running ahead of me a little bit because she was trying to get a few extra miles in, and there was a set of bleachers off in the distance, and the closer she ran to the bleachers, the more she thought it was a dog running after her. She turned around running after me, basically screaming, thinking a dog was chasing her. And I recall seeing, when I was running, there was a white sign off in the distance, but I couldn't tell what it was because I was hallucinating and delirious, and I thought somebody with a white shirt was running after me. There was a portion of the track where we saw a dead squirrel, and we would just continue to talk to it every time we...
Sounds like you guys were drinking something in your water, Steve. It's funny. I talked to a pathologist I work with. He's a big ultra runner and a vegan and stuff like that. And we had a pretty heated conversation. Do you think ultra running is good for you or not? Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, it's better than other options, but it just seems like pushing your body to that extreme physiologically.
Right. Is that healthy?
Yeah. I don't know the answer.
Well, I do know a little bit of the answer, but I'm not sure it's related to the extremes. Telomere length in our DNA. There's been some research, and obviously it's not completely conclusive or completely where it needs to be. But there is some indication that if you just do a moderate amount of activity, telomere length tends to degrade over time as we age. But for the endurance runners, the people that do a lot of activity, it tends to be stronger. They tend, from what they found, I believe they live like 7 years longer because the actual telomere length in the DNA is much stronger than it is in just the typical active individual. Now, obviously, that's just one study, but it's extremely promising. So,
Yeah, which is interesting too, because that with telomere length, one of the things that can really shorten your telomeres prematurely is stress.
That's my point.
Yeah.
In the inflammatory state that someone like Steve has to be in for that, 96 hours, but it must be counterbalanced with the negative parts of not being active, and
Well,
it's all relative
it
to
is.
what the baseline is,
and not understanding how some particular person is methylating. Like there are absolutely probably people who are more genetically predispositioned to be able to handle that type of physical stress and process it and not have it be damaging.
right.
But if you look at ultra runners, they don't look like Steve, right? They all look like they have sarcopenia. They have like no muscle. It seems like it. And you look at Steve. Steve actually has muscle. He has a body type that's different. That's more.
That's because he lifts weights.
I know. So I think that was ultimately where the discussion ended with the pathologist. I know we were talking about aging. Would you rather age with muscle or not? And one of the things that Steve's talked about on his social media a lot lately is that he's done all this running, and a lot of his measurements of his thighs and things haven't really changed. And so that, I know it's a case study of one, but it kind of refutes some of the thoughts that if you do these long distance, you're going to lose a lot of muscle. Right. You can maintain it. So
yeah, there's an incredible amount of nonsense in the in fitness in general. Basically, it boils down to almost equated to if you play basketball, it makes you taller.
Right.
Well, if you're tall, you're better at basketball, right? Or if you sprint, it's going to get you big legs. When in actuality, the best sprinters probably have big legs. There's a lot of nonsense in fitness when it comes to that. Runners don't lift like I do. So I've been lifting on and off for 35 years, very heavy. So people tend to think that ultra running will make you frail, but in reality, that's the best ultra runners are generally lighter and built for it in a certain way. But they also don't really lift weights like I do. It's just reality. So it's a very interesting experiment. The things I've learned over the course of my 35 years in lifting is that once you have muscle mass, it's very difficult to lose. It's very easy to maintain.
Yeah.
That's what I think about every time I go to the gym every morning. You said that before, Steve. I say I'm going there to put more muscle mass on, so when I get older, hopefully I won't lose it. That's the idea.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to lose, and people are in my world, in my social media world, are extremely skeptical about what's taking place with me. But I continue to show them I haven't lost anything, and that doesn't mean keeping muscle mass is optimal for endurance training, but it simply means that it's not going to take away the way you look if you're training hard in the gym.
Yeah. I think that's a good testament too to the being on top of your recovery and refueling and nutrition while you're doing these things. Someone who didn't have that type of understanding going into this definitely, I think, could find that they were very quickly wasting away if they weren't paying attention to those factors. But it really is so cool to see you and Fiona both like really thriving, even under, this new stress and this new endeavor. I mean, it shows you so much that you can take on a big task at any point in life too. I mean, most people don't sit around and think like, gosh, I'm going to start ultramarathoning at 50.
They don't.
No.
Especially in Lebanon, Ohio, for sure.
It's true.
I have a goal, and I was running for 188 days, 10 hours a week, and my speed sucked the whole time. Just sucked. I mean, it's like a turtle on an ice skating rink. Just I'd be running as fast as I could, and Fiona would be there next to me walking, and I would get sometimes I'd just get angry with her.
Like pretend
Run.
like you're working.
At least, right? That's how slow I run. But I had a breakthrough, and my 10K time in the woods is always right around 2 hours, and that sounds really slow to people. But when you're considering the elevation changes and the roots and the rocks and all that nonsense, it is what it is. You can't. It's not like running on pavement. But long story short, I was always around 157 to 2 hours for my best PR time. And last week I went out and I did it in 127.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
After 186 days of running, and you're like, what the heck just happened?
Like you cut out like a half hour off your time. That's insane.
Right, and I'm moving 250 pounds through space. It's like, what just happened? And the next time I went out, and I broke my PR time again. And then we went out yesterday, and I was a minute and 40 seconds off my PR time in the snow and ice. So it opened a door in my mind saying, what can I really do? I mean, what can I accomplish? People see this big novelty, this big muscular novelty, but now it's like, I want to show up at one of these races and crush these guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm not saying I could, right? But it would be pretty unprecedented for the Incredible Hulk to show up at one of these runs and beat them.
yeah. Well,
That'd be the best Instagram post ever, Steve.
oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I think it shows too that, you can improve at really anything. I mean, the 10,000 hours theory, I mean, the amount of hours you've put into running, I mean, at some point, like your body is just getting used to it. Like it's becoming more fluid. Like, your steps are probably more efficient. Like you're just becoming more efficient.
I talked to a high level running coach. He coached at the collegiate level. And I said, what makes the difference? And he goes, it's amazing. It's all mental, when you try to get these splits or these times. And he said he had this one runner who, maybe it was himself, I don't remember who it was, but the clock was down. And so they were manually doing it. And so he felt like the pressure was off. And the person, it was either him or whoever, went out there and like beat it by like 10%. And it was only because they didn't think they were being measured correctly with the clock. The clock went right back on before they ran, and they had their best time.
Yeah.
And it was purely mental. There was he said there was nothing different with the preparation. They didn't change around the diet, et cetera, et cetera. It was all from that runner's mind. So yeah, that's crazy, man. So if you go and win this 100-mile run, I mean, what do you do after that? You're going to have to go into space or something.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because me and my wife talk about how when that's done, we want to back off, and maybe try something different, but I don't know. I mean, when I talk about wanting to show up as a bigger guy and show people what can be done, it's not to it's not to beat somebody. It's more just to see what the human body can do when people don't expect it to be able to do something. So, when it comes to what's next, I don't know. I've been talking with a fellow Coloradian. Is that how do you say it?
Yes, Coloradan.
So, yeah, I've been speaking to somebody that's David Clark, who is from Colorado. David's run 100 races of 100 miles. He has a book called Broken Open, which I highly suggest. David was a big fatty like me, over 300 pounds, and he woke up one day and just started running. And he's done all the big races. But, I've been talking with him, and, once you reach that 100-mile bug, if I improve, there might be some seed in me to see what the next level is. Not just to do it, but to do it well or to do it better. So I can't say for certain. I do know I need to get leaner to be more efficient. I mean, I would be a fool to say I can continue to run at 250 pounds and not have it take its toll on my joints, because just from a basic physics standpoint, it's very inefficient. But I'm hoping I can get down to 210 pounds, still be rather muscular, and just see what's next.
Well,
Yeah.
Zion Williamson, that basketball player, he's like 280 pounds and he jumps over people. So it's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, it's super inspiring. And I think that, I mean, God, you just took the last interview we had with you and you like doubled it in inspiration. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So, Steve, where can people find you on social media?
They can find me on Instagram at Ben the Barman, on Twitter at Iron Massive, and on YouTube at Massive Iron. If they're interested in learning more about the film, it's 96hoursfilm.com. We don't have a lot up right now because I don't have a lot of time to mess with it, but there's a trailer up, and they can learn a little bit more. We also have runforaiden.com, RUN4AIDAN.com, and the website kind of tracks our runs a little bit, when we have time to post them up.
That's awesome.
Actually, we have one quick question. Amy asked this to me. We were talking about like things we could ask you, but we got so far into this, which is so intriguing. But you train other people, right? Still with lifting and resistance training?
Yes.
Okay. Amy asked a really good question. I'm just asking it for her, but has your training style changed since you've been doing the running stuff? Have you changed what you've done purely from your experience in the past year?
You mean from a resistance training standpoint?
Yes.
Oh, no, I meant it from a coaching standpoint.
Coaching.
Like if you coach
Yeah.
differently because of kind of what you've learned about yourself and your abilities
Exactly.
through running.
I would say I'm evolving. I mean, one thing I learned is that, most people, when it comes to strength training, most men and women need to hit a certain level. They don't need to get superhuman strong because it can be counterproductive over a long period of time. But, I was always about being big and strong. But when I was younger, it was all about fitness for me. It was back in the early 80s, late 70s. I remember having a Richard Simmons, DVD or record. I would do aerobics and jump rope and all kinds of stuff. And I'm kind of getting back to that where I don't just want to be big. I don't just want to be strong. I also want to be fit. And when it comes to coaching others, I don't push the fitness end of things. But when they see what I'm doing, they generally show an interest, and I try to foster that interest, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, if you're big but out of shape, if you're strong but out of shape, it's not healthy.
Oh, yeah, same thing if you're skinny and out of shape. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, healthy is healthy.
Yeah.
And that's it has to involve a minimum degree of activity. So I'm definitely changing. The more I get into this, the more I want to help people not just run or walk or hike, but I want to show them they can do things they never thought possible, no matter where they're at. And that's really fulfilling. And, that's kind of where I'd like to go as a coach. I got into a thing this year where I want people I'm trying to get a team of people to join me in West Virginia next year. And I want just a bunch of folks that feel like they're average, and I'm going to train them for the next 8 months, and they're going to show up at a trail marathon and see what they can do. So,
Amy and I are pretty average. Steve.
Well, I'm coming to Colorado next year.
All right. Maybe we could join you in West Virginia.
That would be awesome. So yeah, I'm training and evolving, and it's more fulfilling to see people do things they never thought they could do, whatever avenue that is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great goal for anyone in life. Regardless of your size, but to see that you can push yourself and like really accomplish something awesome is And that's what life's all about.
This is exactly why we
Yeah.
have you on, Steve. You fill us up. We got to bring you back every year. Give us the pep talk. Go back out there. But then, you know what? I mean, I don't know how you're gonna beat 100 miles in one sitting. That just seems so outlandish. But I mean, it's obviously possible because people do it. But with your body type, it just seems that's a huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Steve. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, a lot of people warn you. They mean well, and they warn you, about what you're doing. That it can be dangerous. But one of the things you learn is that when you're challenging yourself on this level, I've never been more alive. I mean, I've never been more in love with breathing and sucking in air than doing this, because of all the things you do in your life. Someday when I'm old and can't walk because of what I'm doing, I can look back and say, and just have fully lived, and that's what it feels like. Just to climb a mountain that seems impossible, and to do it, to such a degree well beyond you thought you were capable of. I mean, really, what more is life about than to see what you can do, whether it's learning something, a skill or a trade, or climbing a mountain, or hiking, or running, or swimming. It's just to learn who we are is a spectacular thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's totally true too. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm super excited to continue to watch your journey as you go toward your 100-miler in May. It's going to be super awesome to watch.
And when I got out of this talk is that I can go eat Krispy Kremes as long as I run afterwards. I think that's what Steve is saying.
50 miles. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe not the 50, maybe 5, but that's okay. Start small.
Well, thanks so much, Steve. We really appreciate you coming on with us today.
All right. Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure.
Steve, you're awesome. Thank you so much.